Awesome. Looks like we're just about ready to get started. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Again, this is another episode of Bitmart Twitter Spaces. Today, we're going to be talking about decentralized digital ID and how that reshapes finance and crypto transactions. I think this is a really exciting topic that we're going to be on today. I think DID has its hands in basically every area of the industry and ecosystem, everything from gaming to DeFi to DAOs to infrastructure. So this touches a lot of different places and a lot of different pieces of the ecosystem. So really excited for to get a chance to hear from our guest today. Um, so uh, you know, joining us today. Just as like kind of real brief, we're going to have Matthew Gould, who's one of the founders of Unstoppable Domains. We're going to have Charlie Chen, who is the CMO of Web3.com. We have Jack, who is the founder of Base Name Service coming out of Coinbase. And then Arvin, who is a product manager of DID. So incredible panel today. A lot of esteemed guests. I think we're still waiting on a couple. But yeah, before we start any of our Twitter spaces, just a couple quick housekeeping announcements. As always, we do have to give our quick bit more disclaimer. So the information provided is for general informational purposes only. All information is provided in good faith. However, we make no representation or warranty of any kind, express or implied, regarding the accuracy, adequacy, validity, reliability, availability, or completeness of such information. The statements or opinions expressed in these events are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the views of Bitmart or its affiliates and shall not be considered professional financial investment advice. All crypto investments are highly speculative in nature and involve substantial risk of loss. Past hypothetical or simulated performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. The value of digital currencies can go up or down, and there can be a substantial risk in buying, selling, holding, or trading digital currencies. You should carefully consider whether trading or holding digital currencies is suitable for you based on your personal investment objectives, financial circumstances, and risk tolerance. So, now that we got that out of the way, we do have one other announcement, which is once again, we do have a 100 USDT giveaway to 10 lucky winners. If you check out the post that's pinned to the top, all you have to do is follow Bitmart Exchange, give us a retweet, tag 3 friends, and comment your answer to the following question along with a screenshot of your attendance in this Twitter space. And the question that you have to answer is, which blockchain networks does the Bitmart NFT marketplace support? Again, which blockchain networks does the Bitmart NFT marketplace support? So it's only which networks do we support. So just click on the pin post at the top. Follow us, retweet, tag 3 friends, comment the answer to that question, and take a screenshot that you're in here joining us today. And you can have the opportunity to be one of 10 winners of 100 USDT, so 10 USDT each. Now that we got that out of the way, super excited. We can kind of bring up our guests. I'll just introduce them once again. And then we'll kind of dive into each individually. We have Matthew Gould from Unstoppable Domains. We have Charlie Chen, who is the CMO of Web3.com. We have Jack, who is the founder of Base Name Service, and Arvin, who is a product manager of DID. So I'd love to kind of bring each one of our guests up one by one. And if you could just give us a brief introduction about yourself and about your company and project that you're working on. I'd love to start with Matthew. And if you could, kind of come off mute and tell us a little bit about yourself and about Unstoppable Domains.
Hi, everybody. Happy to be here this morning, at least morning on the East Coast. I'm Matt from Unstoppable Domains. We've been in the Web3 domain and identity space since about 2018. And we really think that this is one of the best uses for blockchain over the next decade. And we really think that a lot of the big problems on the internet, things around bots and scamming, can be solved by having a portable digital reputation. And we think that Web3 domains are the answer. So excited to dive in a little bit more.
Awesome. Super excited to chat more about Unstoppable Domains. Would love to pass it over to if we have Charlie. I think we're still waiting on Charlie. So if we could drop down to Jack from Base Name Service, would love to hear a little bit about your background and tell us a little bit about Base Name Service.
Yeah, GM everyone. It is Jack from the Base Name Service. So we are building the gasless ENS for Base. The Base is a new layer 2 solution from the Coinbase. So we try to bring this ENS for Base blockchain with gasless and more walletless experience, so that next billion users are going to use maybe like have these domain names.
Awesome. Yeah, appreciate the context there. Super excited for everything Base has going on. So cool to see some early applications coming out of Base. And then lastly, we have Arvin, who is a product manager at DID. Arvin, I'd love to hear a little bit about yourself and tell us about DID.
Yeah, actually, we are the D.ID team, and that's the abbreviation of decentralized identity. And we want to explore identity in the Web3 and the remodeling organizational and interpersonal, relationships using our products. Firstly, we have Dobbit, which started about 5 years ago, and it is a multi-chain and are going to be the most, the least knowledge you need about Web3, the product that you can use to enter the Web3 world. And you would just need like a phone and a biometric scanning device that you can register adopt it. And that's our main product right now. And we have Voti, which is a DID-based governance tool to help you remodel the organizational relationships, and that is the DID-based governance tool. And we are going to release another DID-based SBT issuing and management tool, and that is for like you can stack your reputation and experience upon your DID, and all your experience are minted onto this SBT, and this SBT is tied to your identity. And also, we have a little tool called D.ID profile, and you can just enter, D.ID slash your, wallet address, EVM wallet address, and you can see your little profile there. And it is under development right now, but we're going to release this D.ID profile really soon. And so that's what we are going to explore in the future and right now. So we are D.ID team and remodeling the organizational and the interpersonal relationships with our products. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, super excited to learn. I think there's a huge connection between SBTs and DID. So excited to dive in a little more there. Um, so I think we've seen quite a bit of rapid adoption of Web3 domains. You see just about all over Twitter that people left and right are inputting whether it's the .eth or the all the different Web3 domain options. So I'm curious what you guys feel are some of the most compelling use cases that you've seen for owning a Web3 domain. Um, and I guess I'd love to start with Matthew. Uh, what are some of these like main use cases and things that you're really excited about this kind of Web3 domain space?
Well, right now, I think the majority use case for this is signaling your participation inside of a given community. At least that's what we're seeing for a lot of the blockchain domain names that people are posting on their Twitter profiles. So it's a way of showing support for the particular community that you want to belong in. And then I think that the use cases that we hope to evolve out are going to be for sending cryptocurrency. So most people still send crypto to a naked address. This is, I think, very dangerous, and sending instead to a Web3 domain name is a much safer and more convenient way for people to use. So we think that's going to roll out into the future. And then you hear everyone in the space talking a lot about identity. And identity, I think, is the most speculative and least developed of all the use cases, but it's also by far the most interesting. And the reason is that when the internet was built 40 years ago now, they didn't have a way to put identity into the protocol. And one of the big jokes was like, no one knows that you're a dog on the internet, right? And then I guess maybe a more modern version of that is you can't tell if someone's a bot or not anymore, especially with things like ChatGPT and other AI programs coming out. So what Web3 domains can do with blockchains is allow people to verify information about other entities. And specifically, we think they're going to verify information about their personal identity and then use that to move across different applications. And if that works, what we've essentially built is reputation on the internet. And that will make the internet safer and more pleasant to interact with because you'll know that that's not a bot. You'll be able to look up and see if that person's associated with being a scammer or otherwise a bad actor in the space. And people will have an incentive in order to build their reputation over time and become a good actor. Right now, there's not a lot of incentives online to be a good actor as there are as many incentives for being a bad one. Everyone has incentives to, for instance, fake their number of followers on Twitter by using bots or try to fake engagement or things like this. And reputation systems will not just make that 10x harder, but we actually think it'll make it 100x or 1000x more expensive for these people online to try to trick people or other nefarious activities that they're trying to communicate. So that's really what I guess kind of breaking it down in a different time frame. So in the very short time frame, it's mostly about signaling your community. In the medium time frame, we think it's going to make interactions in crypto better, specifically for sending payments. And then on the long time horizon, that's where everyone's excited about the potential here for building a native identity system for the internet.
Yeah, I love the way that you frame that, where it's, kind of, you have short term, it's like, hey, signaling, yeah, I'm a part of the crypto ecosystem, I'm very bullish on this economy. And then in the medium term, it's just, ease of payments and infrastructure. And then when you look at the longer time frame, it's like, oh, okay, well, why do we need kind of traditional, whether it's like Social Security in the US or other of these like antiquated identity systems, where if we can just have an open, decentralized internet-based system where you can get all of the benefits without any of the drawbacks or limitations. So I just love the way that you framed that. I think that's super valuable for the audience. So I appreciate that. Would love to pass it over to Jack and kind of get your take as someone who's kind of building on base, which a lot of people are believing that maybe could be a little bit more KYC focused and kind of where they're going to have a little bit of that base information, or some of that information from Coinbase. So, like, what are you kind of thinking are some of these most compelling use cases for Web3 domains today, and why do you feel so bullish on kind of base?
Sure, yeah. So I think that first of all, this base is for everyone. It's permissionless, so anyone actually can build on this one. So actually, no one actually needs to do any KYC on base blockchain. And the reason we are building on Base is there is a couple reasons. The first of all, the Coinbase has the 110 million verified users and $80 billion assets on their platform. And also Coinbase Ventures invested in 400 plus companies. So all of those users and companies are coming for Base blockchain. So that's we are going to provide these Web3 usernames and domains for all of these users and companies. That's why we are building on Base. So in terms of use cases, there are actually like really good ones. So recently I have seen is like the wallet chat. So that you can actually use your Web3 domain names to chat with other people. So recently it wasn't really possible. So with the wallet chat, you can just put your maybe ENS name or like different types of maybe like your name.base or like, yeah. So you can use that one to send messages to each other. So you don't need to actually kind of expose your email address or anything like that. So on top of that, and currently I'm seeing also a lot of actual use cases is on Snapshot. Snapshot is decentralized DAO voting system so that people can actually log in and kind of vote on like different types of proposals on like maybe shapeshift proposals or maybe like ApeCoin proposals, and also like based on service, we are using it actually heavily snapshots to actually create the proposals. Like for our latest one, it's more like, hey, should we enable emojis? Like emoji dots, base names, and like people are actually like excited about actually this the votings with their actually the Web3 usernames. And on top of that, there are actually like during actually each demo, right? And I actually collected a number of POAPs by using my ENS name. So for example, like jackjack.eat is my ENS name. Then I just used it to actually collect a bunch of POAPs. And that's actually a really nice use case so that we can like kind of prove that like we had like met with each other. So also like I attended that specific events. And also, I think like the most general use case nowadays is is like the simplest and easiest way to actually send crypto today is just using your Web2 username, and that's it.
Awesome. Yeah, I think there's like a lot of really great points in there. Obviously, Coinbase has a lot of users, but I think when you start to get into like DAO governance, I think you know, decentralized identities is a massive piece of that to prevent Sybil and purely stake-based governance we've seen isn't probably the best issue. So I think there's a lot of, if we can have provable identity, I think I think DAO governance is a place that not as many people are thinking about, whereas typically, people are thinking about more on the DeFi side, which obviously there are plenty of use cases for, but yeah, I think that's, very interesting and differentiated. So appreciate the answer there. And then, yeah, I would love to pass it up to Arvin from DIDID, DID.ID, and just hear about, what are some compelling use cases that you guys are seeing coming out of the DID space and the Web3 domain space.
Yeah, so right now we are focusing on the organizational and interpersonal level. So here, we have some questions such as, so how do you define if a person is a member of an organization? So I think that without DID and without this DID-based organization, structure, there's just no way to define that a person is really a member of an organization. And second, how do you just does this organization just govern itself? How does it just progress as an organization? And we think that voting might, and as as this SBT issue and management system might be the answer for them, because so through Jack just mentioned the smash snapshot, and the vote is just like that, and it's a voting protocol, and it's the decentralized one, and you can just use adopt it or INS to register and import your community on there, and you can just issue your sub DIDs, which are like Arvin dot bit, and that's a sub DID. And so with that, if you hold like a sub-ID of an organization, and it will deem that you are a member of this organization. And after that, this organization can use this VOTI and this SBT issuing management system to stack to govern itself and to stack reputation and experience using SBT with the sub-DIDs. And so there's another question. So how do individuals just capture the value inside an organization? I think that the organization can just issue SBTs to prove that they have done something great for the organization, and later these members can use these SBTs to prove that they have done something great, and the devotee can read this information, and they can just raise allocate a different voting power to this identity. And so these SBTs will not just the pointless and useless SBTs or just take JPEGs stored in their account, but it's a useful thing to approve of their past, their reputation and experience. So I think that's what we are trying to solve. So just make the identity useful in an organizational scenario. And so that's what we think that it's the most compelling, use case in Web3. And we are exploring this is from like a DAO level and organization level, and we are exploring, a fan economy, and we are collaborating with some of the some of the ones that need the fan economy to build upon this ID system. And so, like certain IDs can have, this exclusive rights or powers to claim some of the most exclusive benefits. And yeah, that's a little peek into the future about what we're going to do. Yeah, back to you, host.
Awesome. Appreciate the insight there. So, want to take it in a little bit of a different direction. I think Matthew hit on this a little bit earlier, which is like, global payments and transfer of value. So, how does a Web3 domain help reshape global payments and transfer of value? What are kind of the impacts that it has there? Would love to start off with Jack Jack.
Oh, sure, yeah. So I think in throughout the history, right? And so like information and the money, like those two things have kind of like gatekeepers. So with internet, the information gatekeeper is kind of like gone. There is no middleware, so that anyone, anywhere in the world can publish on apps, publish on like websites. So just like then anyone actually can consume that once. But however, with money, it's just really hard. So for example, like we still have this money gatekeepers. Like it's really hard to send money from A to B, like with like country A to country B, and it's gonna take like a couple days, and you have to do like a bunch of KYCs, and also you have to do like the bunch of like the banking routine numbers, SWIFT, etc. But however, with blockchain, and you can actually just simply using your like Web3 domain, just hey, I would like to send maybe like $1 million from this address to this address, right? Just using like Web3 usernames, and it's actually instant. It can actually take just only a couple seconds, depends on the blockchain. Also, it can actually take like a couple minutes. That's the like kind of like disadvantage and advantage of like using Web3 usernames.
Awesome. Would love to pass over that same question to Matthew, and just hear you kind of flesh out a little more why you think Web3 domains are have the opportunity to kind of reshape global payments, value of transfer value, all that kind of stuff.
Mm. Well, so I think there's two things here. One is that I think it's going to be the way that you manage receiving specifically crypto payments, and at least that's for the short term. And I mean, I think crypto is going to grow a lot. At least that's what I think everyone in this Twitter space is going to agree to. So if the size of the people using crypto for payments grows 100x, and I mean actually using it, right? So there's 100 million people right now who have Bitcoin in a wallet somewhere, but they're not sending it back and forth to each other. And we had huge growth in stable coins during the last bull market. That's come down a little bit now because a lot of money has exited during the bear market. But I think stable coins went from something like $1 billion to 50 billion plus. That's a 50x move over the last bull market. If we had a move like that again, then that means we would go from 50 to 100 billion in stable coins to in the trillions. And stable coins are used for everyday payments. And right now, we mostly just have USDC stable coins, but you can imagine a euro, a stable coin, a yen, a yuan, right? A Brazilian real. So I think that's one part, is for receiving crypto payments. As more things on the traditional finance industry adopt crypto rails, you're just going to be using it a lot more frequently. And likely, you're going to want to use your domain name in order to receive those payments. So instead of having 40 different addresses that you have to give out, a unique one to each person, and all of them are large hex addresses that are hard to remember, you can just give them your name, like matt.crypto or matt.nft. So that's where I think it's going to impact for crypto payments. And then if we take it more broadly, how is it going to change the way that people do financial payments globally? Well, I think that goes back to identity and reputation. Because if you send a wire transfer right now, you don't really know anything other than the receiving bank information when you're sending money to someone overseas. Or even, and if you use some of the apps like maybe Venmo, or you can get a little more context about who that person is that you're sending money to, right? Maybe you can see their picture, or they link it to some of their social profiles. But with Web3 domains, we really think you're going to have a fully flushed out profile. And, for instance, for Unstoppable Domains, we have ud.me/, your domain name, and it's a full profile. And you can connect your different social handles into that. We're starting to allow you to follow others, and we're starting to build reputation components into that profile. So imagine a future where when you're having a financial transaction with someone, you can garner reputation data about that person that you're interacting with. So, before you pay someone that you hired to come out to work on something for you, it's kind of like you get the Yelp reviews before you even send the payment out. And additionally, with more information that's being gathered about where you're sending crypto to, we think the first place you're going to start to see this is with scams. And you already see this on exchanges. Like Coinbase Exchange, for instance, if you try to send money out to a known scam address, they'll sometimes flag your payment and stop you from sending it because they don't want you to lose your money to a scammer, and send you the warning or whatnot. And so that's reputation information that's being built in there. That's going to have broad impact on finance just generally to enable people to have more information about who they're interacting with online. And again, I think that's a positive because you're going to be able to have incentives for people to behave in a way that's socially positive online, and then also in the real world for their financial transactions. So that's kind of, that's the two kind of areas here. One is just the broad growth of the crypto market, and then the other is this concept of layering in reputation and identity data onto our payment networks, which is new, and there are some things there that are scary, but I also think there's a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah, I love when you talked about kind of the barriers that it creates and the efficiency that it adds. I think one of the big things and one of the big kind of criticisms of kind of Web3 payments is that not having confirmations, or once that money's gone, it's kind of gone forever. Whereas in traditional systems, if you send a wire to a bad address, there's probably there's some ways to get it kind of clawed back. But this kind of adds that extra layer of efficiency and extra layer of protection. Love that you mentioned Coinbase already does that. And so
I think it's
yeah,
going to get. I think it's going to get a lot crazier too, in terms of all the things that people could do. For instance, if you were to send money to somebody, let's say they're launching a new product, and I think it's an NFT project or something, you could even have a third party insure that payment, or maybe bond it, right, with some sort of slashing mechanism that could be on chain. Just as like a crazy example, so that if you try to buy that person's NFT, and maybe some DAO verifies that they're this isn't a legit developer, we really like them, and we're willing to insure this project. So if the NFT creator runs away with your money, the DAO refunds you, right? You could see things like this kind of popping up in the space. So all these complaints about, when you send crypto, it's bad, there's no way for you to get your money back, there's no refunds or any of this. Crypto is programmable. So all those complaints that people have about it can be programmed in on top, especially once you have a reputation system, so that you can prove the accuracy of the information that people are providing to each other. So I think that's definitely, there's a lot more that's going to happen, and we haven't gotten there at all. But I think it's inevitable that we will.
Yeah, I think I think you bring up another great point about the programmability aspect of like, just because it's not here currently doesn't mean we can't build it in. Like, these are all problems that are arising in a completely new nascent industry, and so does not mean that there will not be solutions that come up from these problems, and especially in like kind of an open cap system, it's like you're going to be rewarded if you build the solutions to some of these problems, add efficiency, add value. So yeah, I think it's a matter of how, not if. It's not that if it's going to happen. It's like these issues are going to be solved. It's just a matter of how these are going to be solved, and continuing to build down the pipeline. So yeah, just like incredible insight there. Would love to pass it off to Arvin, and kind of get your take about how Web3 domain is kind of reshaping global payments, transfer of value, etc.
Yeah, I think first on the reshaping the global payments, I think yeah, most of the speakers have mentioned that you can directly transfer uh, assets into the domain name, and beyond that, we have implemented a function called bit alias. And so when you're using compatible wallets that we have collaborated with, and when you're transferring to a wallet address, which seems to be like 0x blah blah blah, and all the compatible chains we supported, and wallet will be prompted to ask you the name of the of this address. You know, the owner may have set the name for his address, and to prevent that you have, you know, transferred to a wrongful address. So, and when we're promoting this WLS function before, and we received, you know, a customer feedback that he's complaining that he has uh he has been made he's made a transaction that he sent to a wrong address. You know, a hacker just sent him with a very small amount of asset, and with the, you know, the exact for starting um you know, characters and the exact for ending characters of the wallet address. And so, you know, most of the wallet applications, they don't show the full wallet address, and they just show the first four characters and the last four characters. And he thought that it was his own wallet address, and he sent this huge amount of assets to the wrong address. Uh, and he lost a lot. And when we published, you know, this dot alias, he immediately set his own dot alias, and from that on, and he when another one tries to you know send him with assets, and that one will be able to check for his dot alias and check if this is the valid address that he holds. And that's what we have done to to contribute a little bit to the global payments and for the transfer of value. And we think that back onto the organization, you know, relationships, we think that using this ID and to stack your reputation and your experience, and that's a very good thing for you know, a person to build up his personal brand, and he can build up his reputation. And to make a metaphor, it's in LinkedIn in Web3. And so when you are just like when you are trying to join a DAO, and he will be able to verify that you are, you know, a legit, you know, a member of this Web3 space, and you are not a scammer, and you have done great things to various projects. And so that's, you know, ID as a reputation stacking tool. And so that's what our thoughts on the global payments and transfer of value. And back to you, host.
Awesome. Yeah, appreciate the context there. Before we can move on to the kind of the next section, I do want to remind everybody that we do have our giveaway. You know, 2 tweets pinned to the top. The first one is directly for our giveaway. Again, that's 100 USDT to 10 listeners. All you have to do is follow, retweet, tag 3 friends, and comment your answer to the following question while taking a screenshot that you're attending. And the question is, which blockchain networks does the Bitmart NFT marketplace support? So again, which blockchain networks does the Bitmart NFT marketplace support? Check the pinned tweet at the top, answer that question, take a screenshot, tag a few friends, retweet the tweet, and you'll be entered to be one of 10 USDT winners. So just kind of moving forward a little bit. You know, what I'm curious why you guys think the concept of DID is important. I think there have been quite a few skeptics that say that, you know, the current method of digital identification doesn't really require any disruption of Web3 ID, like traditional methods such as, you know, whether that's like Social Security or other countries' kind of identification services. So why do you guys feel like decentralized ID is important? Let's just start with Arvin.
Yeah, I think, you know, first of all, you need the Web3 can provide you with this blockchain. You can store, you know, safely and securely store your data onto it. And so like you know, many DAOs and organizations are governing, and they have this question, you know, on-chain or off-chain governance. And many of the after solving the gas fee, provide them with this voting and DID-based governance too. And we see that many organizations they do not hesitate and use Volti at once. And so we think that through this kind of decision making, and you see that many organizations are choosing to prefer that on-chain governance is better than off-chain governance. So uh, the key value point here is that you can secure all this, governance process on chain, and no one can modify them, and how this organization has gone through this its history, and no one can tap into it, and so that gives people a sense of security, and that this organization is safe to trust. And that goes with all the notions concerning identity, such as all these transactions and interactions starting from this identity are stored online, and you can just analyze all these interactions, and you can the financial services can verify that he's a legit not a scammer, and organization can verify that he's not a scammer, and just this verification service is can only be expected by using blockchain technology. And so I think that is enough to convince that most of people who are hesitating whether to use Web3 or not, and I think that's enough to convince them. And back to you, host.
Awesome. Appreciate the answer there. Yeah, we'd love to pass it on to Matthew and kind of get your take on the same question. What do you say to skeptics who believe that like current digital identity models don't really require disruption from Web3, and why do you think like DID is just so important?
Well, I think it's fundamental that you want to be able to verify data from application A inside of application B. And that means that you need to have some sort of source of truth that is outside of both of those apps. And that's exactly what a blockchain is great at. And so, a public blockchain. So one of the really great things about digital identity when you enable it with Web3 is that it becomes portable. And that is just a huge benefit. If you think about now your online experience, there's so much data about you across so many different type of applications. And we've tried to solve this problem by, like single sign-on and other, first steps, I think, in the direction of making your data more portable. But this generalized problem of I have a bunch of data on, Facebook, and I want to move that data into Twitter, and I'd like to move my contacts over, or maybe I want to bring over my favorite post or something like this. You're not able to do that right now. And this is what we think having digital identities built on Web3 can do. And so what's the reason why you can't move that data now? Well, first of all, applications can't verify that it's accurate. Right? So if you are on Twitter and you say, like, I want to have the same handle that I have on Twitter as I do on Instagram, they would have to build a one-to-one connection between Twitter and Instagram in order to make those verifications accurate. And then let's say you wanted to verify it on another social app. They'd have to build a one-to-one connection with that app. And all of a sudden, this problem gets very complex, because if you want to verify data between 50 different apps, then the number of one-to-one connections you would have to make would be 50 factorial, which is, I think that's right, which is a very large number. It's like 50 times 49 times 48 times 47, right? It's just very hard to solve in a computer programming way, because every single app has to have a direct connection to every other app in order to verify that the data between that's coming in from that app brought by users is accurate. But if you have a blockchain, instead, users can publish their data, and they can publish a verification of that data. So they're not going to be putting image files or videos on the blockchain, but they can publish a verification of that data to a public blockchain. And it doesn't matter which public blockchain, as long as it meets the minimum requirements for security that those apps need to use. Then people can verify all of the data about users coming into their app by just checking in a few different places on those blockchains instead of having to make a separate connection to every single other kind of app. So that's the fundamental technical innovation, right? So if you're asking, why didn't we have digital identity in the 1990s? My answer would be because Satoshi Nakamoto had not invented a blockchain yet. Because there was no way to verify data between different types of apps without a direct connection between those two apps, and that was just too technically complicated. Once we had blockchains, all of a sudden there's the ability to solve that problem by publishing out proofs to that blockchain. And it's been about 10 years in development here for blockchains to get better. I think that the EVM was a huge upgrade for being able to put data on chain. I bet we're going to have several more technology shifts to make it cheaper and easier to store those types of verifications on chains over the next decade or two. That'll make this dream a reality. So that's the fundamental reason why. So if you're a skeptic and you're saying like, well, why can't I just, why do I need a blockchain at all in order to do digital identity? I would just say you're trying to solve the problem of verifying the data between a bunch of different apps. And if you have a common public space where you can check data that you can feel very confident that is accurate, which is exactly what a blockchain is built for, that's how you can build those systems.
Yeah, I love the way you frame that of needing that common verification in order to really like unlock the power of this like public ledger system. So yeah, I think that was like a really simple way of kind of framing it for the audience. Yeah, would love to pass it off to Jack and get your take on the same idea. Like, why do you think DID is so important? What do you say to kind of the skeptics that believe that kind of our current digital ID standards are good enough, and we don't really need any disruption from like kind of public blockchains or Web3?
Yeah. So I think the on-chain is the kind of like the next online. So that I think next billion plus, maybe 2, 3, 4, 7 billion plus plus users are going to use more like Web3 usernames rather than complex wallet address for their online activities. So if on-chain is the next online, all of these transactional activities are going to be on-chain. So based on all of these online activities, and we are going to build this reputation system, right? So based on this bunch of scores, and then we can so that people can actually all around the world can use this on-chain reputation system to verify the users. For example, nowadays I see it's more related to NFTs. So that when you use your maybe login with your maybe Web3 domain name to one applications, and that application maybe also has token gated experience. So that's your Web3 username, that the wallets has maybe different types of NFTs, maybe CryptoPunks or BAYC, that based on that one, and it kind of like verifies that, hey, okay, you have these different NFTs, so you can actually access to this type of functionalities on this website or Discord, etc. It's, I think, like kind of also like the thing that's a lot of actual like applications are kind of like trying to use that one. I think this NFTs, I think, is one of the first steps. Then moving forward, that is kind of like verifying this the user who you are, and also like are you the kind of like really the owner of this specific NFTs, or like I do have kind of like this specific kind of like this score on chain that actually you can access to maybe different type of services. And I think with the traditional the system, we cannot actually kind of do those kind of things because it's, as Matthew said, that it's kind of like it's each application has their own data and going to kind of like it's like inaccessible for any third-party apps. So, but on blockchain, does these NFTs or like these all of these transactional data are on chain, so that we can actually verify the specific users based on activities, or maybe based on kind of like how much token they have or holding on specific accounts, or based on their NFTs.
So I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about data and privacy. So traditional Web2 companies, they monetize and often profit from user data. They don't really provide any tangible benefits. They kind of live in their own closed source environment and kind of take all this data and own it. So how do you guys think DID is able to kind of enhance privacy and give users a lot more control over their own personal data? Let's start with Jack.
Oh, sure, yeah. So with the DID, actually, like there's also like technology called like DID, right? Like, so people, I think, maybe sometimes confused with actually decentralized ID with DID. So, and I think with the DID, I think it is kind of like generates verifiable credentials with ZK proofs, so that these credentials kind of stored on kind of user data, I mean user devices, so that that user can actually kind of selectively disclose their informations rather than kind of like showing all of their the data. So it's then it's actually increases the privacy a lot. So instead of maybe like you showing all your informations, for example, like showing your driver license to like maybe somebody, and you can just actually use more like DID and verifiable credentials with ZK proofs to kind of like selectively disclose some specific informations that you want to prove it instead of showing all of these kind of extra information that's kind of the verifier doesn't need those informations. I think DID is actually kind of really actually like improving on that side on that side.
Awesome. Yeah, would love to pass it off to Matthew and kind of get your take on this intersection of data and privacy, and how does like decentralized identity like enhance privacy, give users greater control over their own data.
Yeah, I would say this is also very early. Um, and I think people are very excited about the potential. But a lot of the pieces in order to make this functional are not all put together yet. So let's talk about what it could look like in the future, right? The very far future. And this is why people are excited. So in the future, when you're moving around different places in your digital life, whether that's in the internet, sorry, on the internet or in real life where you're just, connecting your phone to something, you're going to be able to authenticate yourself with your digital identity. And once you're authenticated in with your digital identity, it's possible those applications could say, hey, we'd like to know a little bit more about you in order to improve your user experience. And it could be something as simple as knowing what your shoe size is or what your clothing size is if you're shopping online. And it could be something as intimate as wanting to have a copy of your health records because you're going in to see the orthopedist because you just got referred from your regular doctor. So like there's a huge spectrum of different types of information that once you have a portable digital identity and you authenticate into these different applications, that those applications can ask you for. So what happens right now online is there's no way for users to manage their data, to take it with them as they travel around. So none of these systems have been built for apps to request data from users and from users to authorize that data back to them outside of the authentication protocols that you see from big companies like Google Auth or Facebook Auth, which are walled off, right? So there's no way for apps to innovate really outside of how they want that to work. Or some governments have some systems, but they haven't really taken off because they just don't have a pluggable way for applications and users to interact with each other on how they want to share data. So I think the first big thing you're going to see is there's going to be a lot more data swapping. And we have not seen this yet. And that's because all this tooling really doesn't exist. If you look at Unstoppable Domains, we have maybe 800 integrated applications. And if you think about the internet, there's 800 billion probably websites. I actually don't know. It's a huge number. It's 800 million. So we're just so early that these things really haven't been built out. But we think that incentives will come around for this more direct user interaction because you're going to be able to design a much better user experience if you can ask the user information about themselves. One of the jokes that I tell is you can go into Google and you can see like the type of stuff that it tracks, and it gives you like some answers to some questions like how old are you, where do you live, and Google has a pretty good guess on some of those things, but some of the information it has wrong. And that's just because it can't have perfect information. But this way enables the app to ask you directly to build better user experiences. So I think we're going to see rewards, and that's something we're working at Unstoppable Domains right now is rewards for users. There's been some exciting new developments in Web3 for rewards programs on chain, and we're leaning into that heavily. And that's going to get people to start switching data back and forth with applications. And, you could get rewards, for instance, if you trade on Uniswap and then you go over to SushiSwap and they say, hey, if you do your next 10 trades with SushiSwap, you'll get an additional sushi reward right? Because you've switched from Uniswap or whatever. You could see that type of behavior happen over the next couple of years inside of Web3, and we think that's where things are going. Longer term, what's really great about users having control of their data is they can also control permission and access to that data, and that's where you get the privacy enhancement. So we think, and you get the privacy enhancement because you could potentially share the information with the apps in certain ways using cryptography where they actually don't have the underlying data. So, let's say that you go to Ford.com or Tesla.com or whatever, and you want to buy a car. There's ways for you to connect your digital identity, share that information with them, give them something like your credit score without having to give them your underlying credit score or the credit data. And I don't want to go into that here, but it's possible in order for people to do computations on your data without having a copy of the underlying data. That's the computer science behind it. And that is a huge improvement for user privacy. And that's much further in the future. But I do think ultimately that's where things are going to go because it's going to be a safer system. And just from a security perspective, I don't think that a lot of applications want to have your data because then they have all these problems with GDPR compliance or other type of keeping data safe. So yeah, that's kind of how I think that user privacy is going to be enhanced. I actually think first, you're going to see a lot more rewards and incentives for apps and users to swap data back and forth directly because that just doesn't exist yet. Once that becomes firmly established, you're going to see a lot more ways for people to swap more sensitive data back and forth in a very private manner. And that's where I think you're going to have the privacy enhancement kick in using Web3 products.
Yeah, once again, really appreciate you breaking it down kind of, short, medium, long term. I think that gives us a lot of context about how, users are going to get a lot more control over their data and even, opportunities to profit off of a lot of that data, much more than, Web2 companies building just like giant behemoths off of that data. I think we have one more question and then we want to save some time for a couple questions from the audience. So, yeah, would love to just learn from you guys and give you guys an opportunity to chat with the audience about any new features or significant changes that you guys expect from your companies and projects. What should customers expect? What should we keep on the lookout for? How can the audience support and keep up to date? So would love to pass it back to Matthew.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah. What new features or significant changes should
what's coming?
expect? Yeah, what's on? Yeah,
yeah. Well, I would say the first thing is follow our Twitter. We have so much stuff coming out. It's every month, right? So some of the things we're excited about this summer is we're starting to support additional naming systems. So we announced a little bit earlier this year we will be rolling out support for .eth at unstoppabledomains.com in addition to all of our other TLDs. And this is part of our push along with our Web3 Domain Alliance and other initiatives that we're doing to really help move the industry forward. So in this bear market, we're kind of looking at it and saying, listen, we need to all grow together as an industry. We need to come up with some standards. We need to make sure that we prevent scammers and bad actors in here from muddying things up. And this is the perfect time to do it, right? Because the people who are still here now and working on projects, they believe in Web3. Right? All the tourists, they left with the bubble, and this is the best time for people in the industry to get together and set out, hey, what's our vision for the future? How can we do good for the world? And start putting things in place to make sure that users are protected the next time we have a wave come around. Another thing that we're excited about doing this summer is messaging. So messaging is coming to Unstoppable Domains very soon. We've actually had messaging in the past. We deprecated it because there wasn't a lot of usage 4 years ago when we first let it out. We're launching messaging again. And what's interesting is we have a couple different messaging offers for users. And so you're going to get to see that this summer. But, basically comes down to when you send someone a payment, wouldn't it be great if you could also send them a message saying, hey, just sent you the payment. Can you confirm it? We think that's a very natural extension. We've always thought that. That's why we originally had messaging in the protocol 4 years ago, and now we're reintroducing it. So that should be pretty exciting for people. And then, we are pushing into new products that are accessories to your domains. So you'll start seeing a lot more of that. We had our parking and custody product launch, which is, we've always been a self-custody platform for users, but we're now starting to see that a lot of people in Web 2 specifically want to have a custody option. So we put that out there this year, and we think that's going to help bring in a lot of new people from Web 2. And then we also added some fun things too, like badges, which are reputation pieces that you can pick up. We can see us expand out on those. And then also, avatars, because we think if you're going to have a name, you're probably also going to want to have a face in Web3, and allowing people to hook those things up. So I would follow us on Twitter. We have something new every month at least. The cadence is pretty quick, including things like subdomains. Actually, that's coming out. I think our first app that's going to be doing that with us is actually this Friday. So yeah, plenty to do just at Unstoppable Web. And please find us on Twitter and stay up to date.
Yeah, Unstoppable Domains is one of the better Twitter follows in the space and incredibly active. So appreciate all the context there. I think you guys have some really exciting things going on. Would love to pass it to Jack and hear your same take. What are some big features, changes, roadmap that's happening for you guys at base name service? What can some customers expect this year?
Oh yeah, so the first thing is we are preparing for mainnets. So recently the base team released kind of like 5-step requirements in order to launch the mainnet. So we are preparing for the mainnet to launch base name service on mainnet. But however, we are currently actually live on testnet. And with our testnet, we have delivered actually really two big functionalities. So the first one is the gasless. So that's nowadays, like when you actually want to register maybe domain names and you need maybe more like native currencies like ETH in order to register domain names. So with our gasless features, users actually doesn't need to have actual native currency to register names. So yeah, that's the one thing, and we delivered, and it's the people actually love it to use these gasless functionalities. So the second is the walletless one, so that any user actually can come to the platform, the base name service, actually can use it, and even though they don't have a crypto wallet address. So this is actually we are using based on MPC wallet. So when user actually can log into our application with their email or phone numbers, then based on that one, we create the MPC wallet on the behalf of the users, so that user actually automatically has a wallets behind the scene. And then based on that one, we are using our gasless features to actually users actually can register names without actually even need to have native currencies on the wallets. So, and why we are doing this one? Because like it's user onboarding is really hard in Web3. So that with these actually combining this walletless and gasless experience, I think we believe that we are going to onboard the next billion users on chain and provide them these Web3 usernames. On top of that, our actually current DAO members voted for emojis. So emojis are coming for the base name service, so that you can actually have different types of emojis and base domain names, and that's coming. And the biggest thing is we are preparing for mainnets, and we are planning to deploy our base name service during the Genesis window. That's base team is going to help all the developers around the world to help to deploy their apps during the Genesis window, so that all these apps deploy successfully during this time and can provide the service for their users.
Yeah, that's incredibly exciting. I think the Genesis window is something that everyone in the space is pretty excited about. There's going to be a lot of innovation coming at one time, a lot of on-chain things happening at one time. So I think that's a window we're all pretty excited about. And then lastly, we'd love to pass it off to Arvin and hear a little bit about what you guys have on the roadmap, what you guys are working on, and what changes and updates customers should be expecting.
Yeah, so there are a few major updates. So the first one is for the Dorbit, this DID solution, and in later this year we're going to support your you can register Dorbit just using the biometrics scanning functions of your phone or your laptops and all those uh, biometrics scanning things, and you can just register Adobe without needing to have a wallet address before you register Adobe. So that would the users will not they don't need to know anything about Web3. They just need to know that, oh, this is identity, and if I scan my face here using my Face ID or finger ID, and I can just register .bit, and I will have a Web3 identity, or just simply put an identity on chain, and then they can use this Adobe to interact with multiple applications, such as if he is a member of an organization, then he can just register and pop into that organization without any worries. He doesn't need to know what wallet address is. He doesn't need to know anything about Web3. He just need to know that he can register Adobe without any uh, problems. And so that's the first thing, major updates with Dobbit, the ID solution. And for another product, which is the SPT issuing and management product that have been mentioned about. So this is due like the mid later this year, and this will be supporting Dobbit and ENS, and we will be developing this as a public good in the Ethereum space. And this is for all the organizations and individuals or fan economy to develop their own organization and own system using this product. And another thing is the d.id/profile. And you can just, right now, you can just type in your wallet address with this d.id/your wallet address, and you can see your NFTs listed in there. And we are still developing this product, but you can use some of the functions right now. And after it's been developed, you can, add your personal, Twitter accounts and other social accounts onto it, and you can really customize it into your own personal profile. And all the NFTs and, those uh, chunks you can just customize with into different size, and you can change your background and all the things you want, and really turn it into your own customizable profile. And so that's the three things, biggest updates we are having later this year. And stay tuned to our, .bit HQ Twitter account. And we are rebranding ourselves as a D.ID team, focusing on remodeling the organizational and interpersonal relationships. And stay tuned to the .bit HQ Twitter accounts. Yeah.
Incredibly exciting updates from all of our guests today. So appreciate everybody attending. I think we have time for maybe one question from the audience. Um, yeah, just anyone in the audience can kind of go up to the pinned tweet and drop some questions there below. One question that I thought was really helpful is how do you guys think digital identity can help benefit developing nations? Something we didn't really touch on too much. Matthew, if you want to kick us off there.
Yeah, well, I think that there's a chance for those places to leapfrog others in terms of digital identity. I am not betting on it, honestly. So I think that we'll actually see most of the innovation in non-regulated industries that have much more digital users. So, and the reason why I think that is I think regulation slows down adoption of new technology a lot. So if you look at some of the developing nations, they don't have as much digital infrastructure. And what I mean by that is like everyone in the US has a cell phone, right? And this person is participating in like 30 different social networks, and they're all over the place with a bunch of different digital data. And that means that there's a lot more opportunities to build reputation and identity systems with digital data that is not as sensitive. If you go to, and that means there's going to be less regulations. So an example of that would be, no one really cares if we build data around the type of NFTs that you trade, and we allow you to swap that data back and forth with apps. That's not regulated. If you go to a developing country, they're not going to have that same exposure in a lot of ways, and so they're going to try to work with important data like maybe driver's license or something like that, and there's just going to be a lot of regulation there. So that's my prediction. I could be wrong, and I do think it's going to be great for those countries because they'll be able to skip over they'll be able to adopt these technologies and use them to improve their economies, and skipping over a lot of the things that we have in the West that we just won't need anymore. But I do think it's going to be developed first in hyper digital economies.
I love the idea of countries skipping over technological windows and kind of jumping into the next thing. So, love the answer there. Arvin, any thoughts on how digital identities can benefit developing nations?
Yeah, of course. So, the main focus of team is just remodeling the organization and personal relationships. And for a nation, it's just we think it's a compound of this organizational and interpersonal relationships. And so you can think of nations as a bigger scale of organization, and you need to have this organizational structure, and you need to know who are the higher levels and who are the lower levels, and all these you need these identities to identify uh, who has a better reputation, who has a better experience, and all this you need to stack all this information onto this identity. And so without uh, I can't imagine a nation without this identity based organizational structure. Without this, I don't think that this nation can just function properly. And so that's my take on this question.
Awesome. And then finishing it up with Jack Jack. Any thoughts on how digital identities can benefit developing nations?
Oh, sure, yeah. So I'm just imagining maybe one thing could be is just maybe like this developing nations have more like the Web3 based kind of digital identities, so that maybe they can actually use this identity to actually kind of like do votes for the elections, right? And that could be actually one thing, and kind of verify that the the yourself, then vote on kind of like different things could be actually like maybe one of the maybe like really cool use cases. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that could be something just came to my mind. Could work. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, appreciate all the answers from our guests. I think that's all the time we have for today. Uh, Once again, this was another Bitmark Twitter Space AMA. Today we had an awesome discussion on decentralized digital identities, reshaping global finance and crypto transactions. Appreciate all of our guests. We had some incredible guests come on today. Once again, we had Matthew Gould, who's the founder of Unstoppable Domains. We had Jack Jack, who is the founder of Base Name Service. And we had Arvin, who is a product manager of DID.ID. Thank you guys again for hopping in with us today. I know you guys are incredibly busy, but still took the time to come in here, educate myself, educate our audience, and I think there's a lot of great takeaways. I think, if nothing else, I'm getting more and more bullish on the DID space and the impact that DID, naming services, domains, Web3 domains, all of these things are going to have on kind of building these picks and shovels and that we need in order to really grow as an industry. So these are important pieces of infrastructure that are going to continue to grow and spread their wings. So